It's the Friendly Fire Show, episode 260. We're back for the first time in 2024. It's mid-February or so. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright, and joining me is co-host Ben Salter. Hello, happy 2024, Ben. How are you?
Good to be back, Steve. We've been off the airwaves for like 2 months. Heaps have been happening. You've gone overseas in that time in a very post-COVID world where you can just travel again. How was it?
It was really good. We went to Bali. We were there for about a week. I brought an Xbox and I used it to watch... No, I just used it to watch streaming services at night. And tried playing Suicide Squad for a split second and went, why am I doing this? And then went to the pool and read my book, and it was glorious.
Perfect. Had a break.
What have you been up to?
Playing games. Like, I've actually played quite a lot. Just because it's been hot and I don't want to go outside and it's summery, and so I decided to try to use this. What I'm going to say is quite a rare start to a year where there's been no big releases really, except for one, which we'll get to shortly. But I kind of feel like there's been more of a lull than usual. Like the last few years, early January, early February have had some kind of big hitters, and they normally flow on from December, so you never really get time to go back.
Yeah.
December had nothing last year really. Very minimal in January this year, so I've had a chance for the first time in years to play through the backlog and actually tick some off. Not going to lie, it's a bit of a box ticking exercise of it. It does feel good to have something that's been sitting on your up next or whatever, however you structure your folders on the various consoles, to be able to delete it and say that one's done. Very nice.
Well, let's hear. What's the to-do list? What's been checked off?
Checked up. I can't remember where I left off last year, but Star Wars Jedi Survivor, that's done. Very good game. Dark Souls-y Star Wars. Pikmin 4, I went back to that and actually played it. Very good game. I would recommend, if you're only going to play one Pikmin game, that's by far the best one to play. It's much more accessible and it's good. What else? I should have written them down. Oh, San Andreas, the definitive edition. I played about half. It is in a terrible state still. Not as bad as when it launched 2 or 3 years ago, but it's still absolutely atrocious, so don't bother. There was the nostalgia hit for a little while, but it's by far the worst of the three of them in terms of the definitive edition. So maybe because it's a bigger game, like the errors show up a lot more. That's a bit of a shocker. Phantom Menace, the PS1 game that came to PlayStation Deluxe, I played through the whole thing. So that's like a GoldenEye nostalgia level, like just remembering what it was like. Because back in the day, I thought this is a good game. Now it's an awful game and a glitchy mess. For some reason, they re-released it on PlayStation Deluxe, whatever one we have. Yep. Classics, Deluxe. Whatever.
Deluxe.
No, whatever we have. I only meant to play like the first 2 missions. Then I remembered how hard this game was. But when you're emulating on PlayStation, you can rewind and just kind of undo that. So instead of restarting a level, you can just undo the absolute nonsense explosion that instant killed you, which makes it much easier. So the whole game's like 5 hours.
There you go.
Would not recommend.
Did it? So it's 5 hours being able to rewind, or 5 hours? Yeah. Okay, so
I reckon it took me like 50 in like 2001. So I don't even know if I've ever finished it. Not that hard when you can rewind.
You had some big list. I'm impressed.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be it. What else? Oh, I played the DLC for Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is very short as well, in anticipation of the real one coming. And I just started Ghost of Tsushima, which I never really played. Seems good. Don't know if I have time for it, but I dabbled in it. I think that's my whole list.
Well, that's like I said, that's a big list and a well done, good effort.
Yeah.
A+. I actually got back to my normal Christmas activity of playing Assassin's Creed. I played all of Mirage. I loved it. Got 1,000 gamer score. Couldn't put it down until I got everything and did all the things. I played Palworld, which I guess isn't really a backlog game, but like it came out and I'm like, it has Pokemon with guns. And I actually liked it quite a bit, and I got 1,000 gamer score in that because I couldn't stop until I got all the things.
That's crazy. How many hours did that take? Yeah, I've dabbled.
18 to 20. You can like go to the world settings if you're playing single player and like amp up XP and stuff. So like I kind of got to level, I think 35 doing like the default stuff, and then I'm like, I just want to skip ahead now. And I was using some of the cheats, like you can go to the boss levels and like do it in a way that you can catch the boss, and then that helps to. So like I caught the grass type boss to go and fight the fire one. That doesn't seem right. You know what I mean, though. I did the
Opposite way.
Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
Sounds.
it's less Pokemon-y than I thought. So, like, absolutely, it's uncomfortably close in that when you're playing it, it just feels like a blatant rip-off initially, and it's like almost a bit like, oh, they've every game copies every other game, but like it went over the line.
Yeah.
But then the more you play, the less it feels like Pokemon. Like once you get over that, it's got a bunch of other elements to it that Pokemon doesn't have. So it's not as much of a rip-off as the first hour leads you to believe.
And I think it's a nice mixture of like a crafting game and a survival game, whereas I don't really like crafting games or survival games, or really for that matter, I don't really like Pokemon. Like I think the kind of fusion of all three was something that I would tolerate more and then grew to kind of like. And I don't know if it was like Stockholm syndrome by the end, but I'm like, this is fun. I'm having fun. And had my little like production chains of like slave pals just, making me bullets and guns and spheres to throw at other pals to add them to my sweatshop. It was kind of sad, but also fun at the same time. I didn't really play much else, the old backloggy stuff. I know that Palworld doesn't really count, but I think it was notable to talk about, and probably for that duration of time and no longer. But we've actually played new games too, which is good. So I guess we'll just seamlessly transition into stuff that we've been playing of late that is new-ish. And the big game that you were talking about before, of course, we've both played, the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which is out on basically everything. What do you think? What did you think? Have you finished? Start talking.
Yeah, finished. Absolute bangers, what I think. I'm very surprised at how good it is. So if you just kind of watch some gameplay footage, you watch the trailer, I think you'd think this is very much mid-tier game. Maybe if you get to it. And that's its intentional style. So Ubisoft made this with Switch as its lead platform, and you can kind of tell, like it very much looks like a Switch game no matter what platform you're playing on. But I get that. It's your full-on Metroidvania, which sells really well on Switch. It's, you think of Hollow Knight, you think of Metroid Dread, there's probably a bunch of others. It's just they sell way more there than they do on the other platforms, so it makes a lot of sense. And the flip side is, it's got a really simplistic visual style. Doesn't really matter when you're zoomed out as much as you are in this side-scrolling game. Like you don't really notice anyway. And it means we get to play in 4K perfect 120 frames on the 4K console. So no matter where you play, you get a good experience. And it's just that perfect mix of making you think you're a genius for figuring out the puzzles, which are quite well crafted, and it's all just behind the abilities that Gate places off from you, which is very Metroid, very 2D Metroid. And it comes together quite well. The combat is tough, but not overpowering. Like I feel like once you get it, you kind of get it, but initially it is kind of challenging. Boss is pretty good. And I think they do what Metroid always does, and they leave the double jump a little bit too late. I kind of felt like by the time I got that, I wanted it hours earlier because there are so many obvious areas to do it. Its new feature, which I think all the other games need to steal, is the take a screenshot and put it on the map. Kind of remember this point because I always forget where's that thing which I thought I saw, and now I've got the ability for it. Where is it? You can kind of just mark about up to 15 places, which is actually very useful. And then there's all the time travel stuff, which reminds you that it's Prince of Persia, and a lot of the abilities are kind of based on that. So it's very much that because you can bend time or shift things around, you can you don't just have like a quick dash. It's bending time that makes you kind of zoom across the screen really quick, or use that to dodge some type of trap that's coming at you or an enemy which is otherwise unavoidable. Just really well crafted. Makes me want Sands of Time, the remake, which is allegedly coming. Good revival of Prince of Persia.
From what I saw, that Sands of Time remake, it needs all the time it can afford.
More time.
So we'll get off that though. I took my Switch with me to review Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which is coming out in a couple days, and the review will be on the site in a couple days. Can't talk about that, but I can talk about I played Ori on the Switch because I was kind of jonesing for a Prince of Persia vibe. Combat in that is basically just hit, attack, and run out of the way of bad guy, where the combat in Prince of Persia Lost Crown is insane. And when you get to bosses, like every little trick that you pick up, you can kind of leave a little like time clone somewhere and warp back to it. You can do an air dash, you can do the double jump. All of those techniques just as they're introduced, kind of become necessary in the next boss fight. So you actually have to be quite adept at using all these things together. And it might sound overly complex, but it's not. It's pretty intuitive and it's kind of fun. And then you feel very empowered when you fight the bosses. I don't think it's Dark Souls like, but it's kind of, I guess. I don't know another way to describe it. Like the bosses are quite challenging, and I don't think on the regular settings at least you're gonna just breeze through them. It'll be a little bit of trial and error to kind of see what the attacks look like and how you're going to counter them. And at times frustrating, I guess, some of the boss battles, but like, that sense of accomplishment that you get when you best a baddie is quite amazing. So there's so many good things about this game. It's like, it was kind of, I was surprised I liked it so much in the preview, like last year before the year ended, and I knew how good it was going to be. And I don't know if anybody kind of believed me when I said it. They're like, "Oh no, it's really good."
No.
Like, yeah, sure. And then like people are like playing it. Oh, this is great. This is the best thing ever. So believe the word of mouth and help spread the word of mouth, I reckon.
Yeah, it's very much got a Nintendo-y vibe on other platforms in there. It doesn't necessarily look great or look impressive, but it's just fun to play. It has a great gameplay loop. And even if you are finding it too challenging, like its accessibility options are really good, actually. You could just make the game easier, but if there's one specific thing that you're struggling with, you can adjust those sliders. So if you're struggling with the timing of parrying, which is really important, you can actually make just that a little bit easier. So you're not making the whole game easier for yourself, but the thing that you're struggling with that maybe just isn't for you, you can just tweak that bit. So I think that's a really good mix for people who want to play some of these harder games and they just normally get put off. And you don't want to play on super easy mode because then it's too easy, but sometimes it's just that one thing that you just can't quite get. So really good all around.
And kind of like Palworld, when I kind of had my fill and then I just went, okay, I need an easier, breezier time. There's so much customization and accessibility, so I didn't touch combat, but once I'd kind of finished the game and I was just collecting up and mopping up the stuff around the map, there are some really tricky platforming sections, or just a lot of platforming sections that are kind of just chained together before you get to like fast travel points or save spots. So what I started to do is you can turn on like traversal assist. I don't know if it's called that, but something like that. And you can kind of just like skip sections of platforming, especially if you know you've done everything in that area and you don't want to have to pixel perfect jump around. You can just kind of like warp and keep going, which might be like cheating, but I think it's amazing, and I'm down for games that kind of let me decide how much time I want to invest into extra things like that. So good on Ubisoft for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all optional. You've been playing a lot more than me from the new stash. I must have been too lost in my backlog. Tekken 8 probably standing out as the highlight. How is it?
It's good. Like, how...
What's that good then?
How fighting game guy are you? Have you played like Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat? Which one's the new one?
I will play them when they come to Game Pass. So not.
I'm kind of the same way. Like, I think probably out of the lot, I usually like Mortal Kombat story the most, but I think I liked Street Fighter 6 more than Mortal Kombat this time around. And this is completely speaking from a casual fighting game fan. Tekken 8 is a lot of Tekken, and the people that like Tekken are like in love with this. I didn't mind it. I know it's competent and polished and amazing, but it's a lot of Japanese characters with 8-foot tall hair doing poses and saying really cheesy things. And if that's your bag, I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but it was kind of like a little over the top for me. But like story was there and kind of cool and weird and entertaining. And it's basically like Succession, just over and over and over again. It's just like family drama with like devils and angels involved. So that's kind of Tekken borrowing from the Mortal Kombat kind of story stuff. There's Arcade Quest, which is kind of taking off on the arcade hub elements from Street Fighter 6. So that's there. Tekken Ball is in there. There's a whole bunch of modes and things to do. I don't know. It's good. It's competent. If you're a fighting game fan, I think there's probably better fighting game. Or sorry, if you're not a fighting game fan and you're looking for one to latch onto, I think this comes third out of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken for me. But if you are a Tekken fan, then you've probably already stopped listening to me and you're swearing at this recording, and that's fine too.
Played it already.
One thing is for certain, like video game fighting game fans are eating well of late. So I'm
Yeah.
very happy for people that are super excited about punching and kicking.
People who are not eating all the late is anyone who just wants to play a fun Batman game or anything
Yeah,
in that universe.
yeah.
We're getting an absolute shocker by all sounds of it. Now, I haven't played Suicide Squad.
I was gonna
Doesn't
ask.
sound promising. Yeah.
No, it's. I was literally playing it before we started recording because I've had a whole bunch of stuff to do, but I got a code from Warner Brothers. Jay ran point on our review. Jay is as much of a comic fan as I am. I'm very much a DC person. I would easily go DC over Marvel, and I absolutely adore the Arkham franchise. Gotham Knights. It's weird because Gotham Knights is not set in the Arkham franchise, but almost would have been like a proper follow-up because, Batman's not around. Here's these other people, go for it. Suicide Squad is set in the Arkhamverse, though, like, Rocksteady has bent over backwards undoing everything it did at the end of Arkham Knight. I won't get into too many spoilers or anything if you haven't played them. I would absolutely recommend playing the Arkham games above this quite easily. But the premise is you're the Suicide Squad because DC loves the Suicide Squad, mostly because Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy's done so well of late. So it's their version of it, down to King Shark being like a 1-to-1 copy of Drax, like fish out of water. Like, oh, you are weird with your human customs. You're the Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and you are tasked with a bomb in your head, of course, to kill the Justice League because they've been taken over by Brainiac. It's weird, like, trying to summarize because I don't want to talk about this for too long. The story so far is actually quite good, and the characterizations of the Suicide Squad are quite good. I really hate what Rocksteady has done to Wonder Woman, Superman, The Flash, Batman, because it's hard to explain. It's like spitting on your childhood heroes, and then, like, once they're down, taking off your pants and finishing up with some fecal matter. It's weird, and the Suicide Squad aren't heroes because of what is happening to the real heroes. They're just kind of unlikable, likable larrikins. I don't know. Like, it's there's so many weird things that you're almost like in for with this game, but then you're immediately pulled out. Story, characterizations, like I said, amazing. The gameplay is awful. Like, everything's shooting. There's just numbers constantly flying. Each of the 4 characters has a completely different means of traversal. And once you play, because it makes you, at least where I am, as Harley Quinn for like an hour or two, or like me, for an hour or two, and then you come back 5 days later. If you have to switch to King Shark or to Boomerang, who have completely different ways of getting around, you basically have to relearn how to play the entire game. And it's weird because they all have kind of like swinging style ways of getting around the world, but it's all on cooldowns and timers, so you can barely do that. And then you pop in Spider-Man 2 on PS5 and you're just like flying around, and it's like the glorious freedom of this. I'm imagining all that cooldown stuff is because of the live service stuff that was just absolutely forced into what this package is. And like, long story short, it ruins it. The gameplay is boring, repetitive, go to a rooftop, shoot at purple bad guys, rinse, repeat. It's just like a really big letdown. And I could talk for 8 more years, but I'm going to stop. Did that make enough sense? Do you have any questions before we kick off?
It made me definitely not want to play it. Actually reminds me a little bit of what Disney did to Star Wars, basically just ruining your memory of everything you once liked, in the name of making a bunch of money. So yeah, I kind of feel similar in that vein. I really like the Arkham games as well. I kind of feel like I just want that again. Like, it's actually been a long time since Arkham Knight. I'm very much a casual Batman fan, so I want to play as Batman. I don't really care about the other characters. That's the guy. Yeah. So that's kind of what I want to be doing. And I don't really... how many Suicide Squad movies are there? I kind of feel like I saw one and it was not good.
There's 2. One was the David Ayer one with like the Joker that had all the tats. Jared Leto was the Joker.
Maybe
that was
the
garbage.
One, yeah.
And then James Gunn made the second one with like Peacemaker, John Cena. And he's the guy that's like rebooting the entire DC cinematic universe now. So that Suicide Squad movie's good, but like it's not like it's not your people. Like who's like, oh yeah, I'm a massive Suicide Squad fan. And like
Yeah.
to what you were saying about Batman, there's an amazing sequence like right at the start where you're playing as a Suicide Squad, but Batman is like Arkham Batmaning you, like down to like the bat gel on walls and stuff, and like silent takedowns, and it's the coolest thing of the entire game. And if like other bits of the game were like that, it would be far more enjoyable. Maybe that is happening. I haven't gotten very far. But you see like the Arkham version of Superman and Wonder Woman and the Flash and Green Lantern, and all I can think of is like, this is I want to be the Flash right now. I want to be Wonder Woman. I want to. No, you're Harley Quinn with a gun, or you're King Shark with a gun, or you're Boomerang with boomerangs kind of, and also guns, and a really like good writing, but a really stereotypical. And I think the guy is Australian, but like just a horribly stereotypical Australian accent. Which anytime Matt hears it, him being a native Australian, like his eyes are just rolling in the back of his head. So I don't know how other Australians feel about representation in this particular title. But it's a big hit and a miss, like massive swing, and just whiffed it. If they would have put out a Superman game, or even like a Batman sequel where you're playing as Robin, like Gotham Knights, but from Rocksteady, like I can't imagine Warner Brothers, like they're not doing well with this release because people are telling people that it's a bad game and you shouldn't play it. If they just made a Batman sequel, they would have made bank. So I don't know why, like what made them decide to completely change tack and then inject live service when they could have just had a nice easy home run.
Presumably because there are now Suicide Squad movies and there aren't any current Batman movies. And like that's...
You don't need a current Batman movie to have people buy a Batman game. But that's just me.
No. There's a lot's been happening in the last 2 months since we've been off. We're not going to try to cover all of it. There's been some really big news in the fact that there was a lot of no news. There was also an Xbox, what do they call that? Developer Direct now. There was a PlayStation State of Play. We didn't really get any announcements out of either of them. We got a few dates for Xbox. I think they announced no new games at all. They showed Indiana Jones, so it looks kind of cool, but it's we didn't see a great deal of it. PlayStation did announce what appeared to be Death Stranding 2. Was it officially titled that?
Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. Which is... there's a guy with a rock guitar which shoots lightning, and that's probably the most normal thing in the entire trailer.
Yep. It was Super Kojima. Now, I do like some of his games. I do not like Death Stranding, so it looks like everything I don't like. It's just not for me. So nothing I saw in that.
But you like Metal Gear Solid, right?
Yeah.
What if you like Metal Gear Solid by a different name called Physint? Physint? Is that how you'd say that? Physint.
I guess. I'm not sure that I would be into a different Metal Gear Solid. It's almost like what we just spoke about in that Snake is a big part of it, and once you take him out of it, it's kind of like, who cares? It's yeah.
Well, like Kojima and Sam Lake are I think they have similar aspirations. They both think different and outside the box. And if Sam Lake can make like an Alex Casey for in lieu of Max Payne, and if he can make a Jesse Wilder, Jesse Fade and Beth Wilder, he just substitutes one for the other. Like, why can't Kojima just make Dense Reptile and call his franchise Copper Cog or something? Like, why can't it just be a blatant ripoff under a different name?
And it probably will be.
Well, with naked women who need to be naked so they can breathe. Or what was up with 5? I can't quite remember now.
I can't remember either, but that's very late 90s gaming. That's how you sell things. And the other one that kind of happened while we were still off. So we if we'd come back earlier, it would have been a big topic. I think we're not going to speak about it too much in the basis that Xbox have announced that they're going to hold a business presentation in the next few days at time of recording. So we'll dive into it more once we actually hear what that is. Essentially, it was leaked that Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves will likely come to PlayStation, other platforms, which we know to mean PlayStation. A bunch of rumors have followed that saying that all first-party games from Xbox are now going to release on PlayStation and other platforms. So they're going to go full third-party developer, much like Sega did after the Dreamcast. The only difference being that Xbox will likely continue to have some type of hardware. All unclear. The issue is not really what we're here to talk about. The thing is, these rumors went rampant. Phil just responded with a tweet about a day later saying, please tune into our business event. We don't even know what that is. Like, is it a live stream? Is it just a blog post on Xbox Wire? Is it a tweet again, a longer one? Is it Sarah Barton being thrown under the bus? Is it Phil himself taking the blame and stepping down? Whatever it is, are they going to give us the next 5 years of Xbox plans? Are they going to announce new hardware now to confirm they're staying in consoles? Are they going to drop out entirely now? Who knows? The fact that they said nothing has made things much worse. Like, they didn't deny, which means it's a yes, right?
Well, yeah, Xbox lost complete control of the message, and it went from like there's been rumors that Sea of Thieves was going multi-platform for a month and a half, and I think Hi-Fi Rush similar periods, and like the Hi-Fi Rush one, there's been data mines with what's his name? Chai, I think, is the protagonist. He has like a Switch shirt and a PlayStation shirt. And, like even when Blade got announced back at the Game Awards, like, I think there was a huge thing about, Microsoft didn't give a platform. Like, they didn't hype it up as a big Xbox exclusive. So there's been rumors kind of swirling for a while. But stuff just hit the fan the other day. And like, Halo's going to come on PlayStation now. Starfield's going to go to PlayStation. And just any game you could think of, basically, someone decided to type up an article saying, I've heard from a source that, like this and that and the other is. And Xbox didn't say anything. And then people are terrified that if all these PlayStation or all these Xbox exclusives go to PlayStation, there's going to be no need to make a console because no one's going to buy an Xbox because you'd buy the PlayStation to play Halo and God of War. And Xbox didn't say anything. And they came eventually, like you said, and said, tune in next week, we'll talk about it. And that's a horrible thing to just kind of come out and deny, not deny, accept, not accept, just nothing. And they called it like a business direct or something. Like, that's
business
the new
update. That's
the new thing from Xbox now. It's the developer update and now the business update. Like, so glamorous, so sexy. And if they are planning on continuing to make consoles, just come out and say it. If you know that, if Starfield isn't going to be a PlayStation game, come out and say it. They didn't say any of that. Yeah. So I can't fault people for wild speculation because you're giving them this space in their head to do it.
Yeah, and essentially holding the first ever business update means that there is an update to the Xbox business. So something's changing. Whether that's they're going full third-party publisher, whether it's something else. The problem is if they go, and the easiest option to get out of this, which I think they would have had to do straight away, they can't do it after a week, would be, yes, Hi-Fi Rush is going to PlayStation. Yes, Sea of Thieves are going to PlayStation. This is why those two games are in that makes sense. Beyond that, it's case by case. Some things will remain exclusive.
Yeah.
If they do that now, it's too late, and everyone's always going to assume, well, is this just going to go to PlayStation soon? In which case, I'll just wait. And of course, there's the console wars where people want their games to be better than the others. I think most people, though, who have an Xbox are just worried that especially since it's got now it's back to 4 generations of games from previous consoles as well are playable on the one system. So people are probably invested more into that digital system.
Yep.
Potentially you've got hundreds or even thousands of games and you just think, well, that's all about to just disappear. If there's no console next gen, I essentially lose that. What should I do? And I can see there's probably people like us who have all the platforms, maybe use Xbox as our main console, so we buy most games there. But if you were told now there's not going to be an Xbox, but there will be a PlayStation 6, I'd probably change and buy multi-platform on PlayStation so that those games come with me.
Yeah.
And then if Xbox games are there too, why does the Xbox exist? It's hard to see why they'd keep it around. You need a purpose to have a console. Traditionally, that's been console exclusives. That's what sold hardware. Not to say that's the only way forward. Like if Xbox have come up with something new, that could be very promising.
Yeah.
It's not working for them. They've been third the whole time, so they might have a great plan. Maybe their business update's going to make a lot of sense. Whatever they're going to do is going to be better for everyone.
Yeah.
But you can't say nothing, wait a week. Like I kind of feel like it's just causing more problems.
And there were rumors that this was planned for like some sort of announcement at the end of February that's had to be moved up. Regardless, Xbox needed to make more of a statement far quicker. because it's hard not to go worst case scenario, because you're thinking like, oh, like I love achievements, I like the Xbox controller more. Sure, maybe Xbox is just going to say, like, we're going to put, after a year or two on Xbox, we're going to put everything on PlayStation. And the reason for that, people have figured that out. That's easy. Like, the PlayStation is selling leaps and bounds better than Xbox. So Xbox wants to tap into their kind of Microsoft software as a service thing and make as much money as they can from people with Xbox. And then a little while later, continue making money from the install base that they don't have on a different platform. Yep. And that's fine, but then my mind just goes spiraling. Like, oh god, okay, so Square Enix, it's hit and miss if they're gonna, publish something on Xbox, and that might be because they're, getting paid by Sony to do it, or they might just say, like, no one that we're developing for has an Xbox, so why would we go to the effort of making this on Xbox? So if people are buying PlayStation knowing they can play Xbox games, and Xbox consoles are different in some way, and developers stop releasing games on Xbox because what's the point? Because they're going to PlayStation and the larger user base, well then, Sega starts pulling games off Xbox. And then I don't get achievements because I, have to play this on PlayStation. Like, my brain just goes in this giant spiral of doom. And I'm trying to not think about it, and I'm not trying to, like, stir up rumors and stuff. But, like, Microsoft needs to have messaged this earlier, and especially now, they need to be super clear on what is happening now and what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, and I think all those things may well happen. They seem like the most likely outcome, really. Even if they go a year or two, wouldn't be 2 years, maybe a year after release, games go to other platforms. Doesn't seem likely. It kind of seems like it's going to be day one, because that's when the sales are. They're just trying to maximize profit. It seems super short-sighted, but that seems to be what they want to do, make some money now, forget about the future. The issue really is most consoles have failed because of failing third-party support. So the console doesn't sell well, or it slows down, so third parties stop putting their games there. Then more people stop buying it, so more third parties stop putting their games there, and eventually folds.
Yeah,
that would have happened to like the 64 if Nintendo's own first-party games weren't absolute bangers to kind of hold that up. Now, if you're taking away your first-party games, then there's just nothing. So it's hard to see how it survives if they go nothing. I think with this business update, they can absolutely lose people here. I don't think they can save their next gen here, but I think they can kill it. It's pretty much the most important day since Don Mattress lost his mind, basically, and went TV. Probably more important than that. Like they kind of rallied. I don't think they can rally if they stuff this up. It's very much people decide now, you know what, I'm just going to buy a PS6 because I'm not sure what you're doing with Xbox. And the more people who sit on the fence, even if they have some type of proposition, which is this is why the next console will be good and worth buying, people will still wait to see if games are actually released on it, at which point they don't buy, and then games don't get released on it. So it's really backed into a corner.
Well, and like I'm not a businessman by any stretch of the imagination, but like it's just everything I think of, I can always just think of something that's going to make it horribly wrong. So if Xbox changes the way that they operate and things are released multi-platform, cool. But that means that Game Pass will be sort of like the biggest seller on an Xbox console. Like if you want Starfield day one, you don't want to have to wait a year or two, and you don't want to have to pay an extra $70 for it. You get an Xbox. But then if that thing that I was talking about where the third-party support starts to wane because no one has an Xbox, then Game Pass as a value isn't going to be nearly as strong, and things snowball again from there. So I'm not sure how this is going to work. I know Microsoft's got it thought out, but I would love to have it told to me so I can start asking like my old mate Philly cheesesteak some questions about what I perceive as potential roadblocks. But again, speculation. We can't, there's no point even worrying about it, because apparently in 2 or 3 days we're going to have some answers, Ben.
Next episode we'll deep dive in. For those who don't have an Xbox, have no interest in having an Xbox, back in the 90s, this would have been big news. If the Sega versus Nintendo times, you would be almost rooting for the other one to fail, because that was the thing. But we're not really in that place anymore. And if Sega said in the mid-90s, hey, we're going to put Sonic on the Super Nintendo, but don't worry, we're still going to sell the Mega Drive, game over at that point. Like it's almost what's being announced. Now, that would mean there's no such thing as multi-platform, because Nintendo play in their own space. So even with the Switch 2, which, it'll get more third-party games, it'll get watered-down versions of the next generation, but that'll only be for a couple of years until the PS6 is out, by which point it goes back to what the Switch is now, which is great games made for it, some games that were made at a lower tier, like Prince of Persia, that work across everything. But the big hitters, your GTA 6s, they're not going to release on that console.
No.
Without an Xbox, the only console is PlayStation. So there is no more multi-platform because there's just the one. And Sony's already been quite anti-consumer this generation. They came in quite arrogant. They knew that they were the dominant console, and it hurt them maybe a little at the very start, but not now. Like Xbox did it as well, but they pretty early on increased the cost of a console, which just never happens.
Yeah.
They increased the cost of games from $100 in Australia to $125. It's all just going up.
Yeah. I don't think the PlayStation would have backwards compatibility if Xbox wasn't there trying to champion backwards compatibility.
No, absolutely
like
not.
There's all these things that, and like competition begets competition. So Sony is pulling out all the stops with their SSD technology as an example to trump, quick resume on Xbox. That's healthy competition, and that's good.
We need that.
We do, because otherwise I do think, like what you were going to say, Sony, instead of Xbox Play Anywhere where you buy a game on Xbox One and it's just upgraded to Series X for you, like they want you to spend full price for The Last of Us remastered how many years after the release of the original, just because now it's native 4K instead of native 4K, because that's what it was updated to on the PlayStation 4 too. There's all these things if unchecked, that's why the FTC was trying to potentially stop the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. So
and they were right. It potentially will create less competition, just in the opposite direction that they thought.
Who saw that coming?
Anyhow, well, let's dive into this more. We actually know more. We're speculating here. It's a grim time for games generally. Like, we need to directly competing strong consoles. That's what the market needs for the best result for the consumer. Yep. Nintendo does their own thing. That kind of helps as well, to just have another pillar that does things differently. It's kind of working pretty well to fuel innovation in a business way that makes sense. But maybe it doesn't make that much sense. Maybe there isn't space for two consoles. Maybe we've kind of reached that mark. We'll need to wait to find out more.
It's a dismal... Maybe video games are just done. Because, since the start of the year, we've had somewhere around 6,000 layoffs. Almost 2,000 of them are from Microsoft. So I don't know what's happening. Stay tuned as we find out together. Ben, we've run long, but it's our first show in 2 months, so good on us. How do we find you on the internet?
I have no idea anymore. I think I'm on X still, but probably not. I don't think you will find me. It's just I'm less on the internet. I'll probably be back on Stevivor relatively soon. Who knows? At some point we need to release a game, so I'll check it out and you can come and comment.
Well, I took the Nintendo one for this time, so come find me on the website. Mario vs. Donkey Kong and Banish's Ghost of New Eden are reviews that I'm putting up this week. And yeah, like you, I kind of if you want to talk to me on the internet, you already have to know me and just slide into my DMs. Don't take that as an invitation if you don't know me. Okay, we'll see you next week. We'll talk, I'm sure, what is happening at Xbox, and then maybe something else, depending on how it goes. I feel like I've been called into my room by my parents, and they have something important to tell me. Either we're going to Disneyland or there's a divorce on the cards. Bye.
Let's hope it's Disneyland. Bye.